So the first question is, do you think there could be an ideal education system?
An ideal education system?
Yes.
Well, I don't think anything can ever be absolutely ideal, but I have, I think, heard of better education systems than the British, and Finland is a good example.
Mm-hmm.
The Finnish education system seems to do things in completely opposite ways to Britain, but they get very, very good results, very, very good educated kids.
Question is, do you think there could be an ideal education system?
I think it's quite hard to achieve, but I think potentially there could be, because so many students work in different ways, but I feel like if they tried hard, there could potentially be one, if they tried to understand how different students work.
Yeah, good.
The first question is, do you think there could be an ideal education system?
I think that a lot of people have different ideas about what an ideal education system would look like. To me, that would kind of look like, you know, students pursuing what they kind of want to pursue instead of what's mandated to them by like tests and stuff. It's like if someone wanted to learn about this, they could learn about it, you know, more in depth. Like if they wanted to study history, they could spec into that a lot earlier than you normally would be allowed to. But I think a lot of people would disagree with me and like say that, you know, everybody should kind of have a Renaissance-like education system where, like, you know, you focus on a whole bunch of other things, like you learn about math, science, physics, and also like the arts and stuff and like history. So I think that you couldn't really have an ideal education system because so many people have different ideas about what that is.
Are schools with basic infrastructure common or uncommon?
Well, if you mean by basic infrastructure, classrooms,
Yes.
Places to eat, libraries and so on, yes, I think most schools are well equipped in this country, but not as well equipped as in the past. Our present government has cut spending on education and all public services too much.
Thank you.
Are schools with basic facilities common or uncommon?
So is this things like PE facilities and sports equipment?
Like, do we need to have like a formal classroom or something?
Okay. Yeah, I feel like having classrooms is good, and lots of places do have classrooms because it separates sort of home and school, and it's just a good way of making sure you have a sort of school environment, and then so you can do work in that environment and then go home and do other stuff.
Great.
Are schools with basic facility common or uncommon? What's your opinion?
I think they're very common. I feel like, you know, every school basically has, you know, like a gym. Most schools in the U.S. have, you know, like Chromebooks and computers they'll lend out to students. In the U.S. you also have, like, you know, basic meals and food provided to underprivileged areas and stuff for free. And schools generally, I feel like, get a lot of funding from the government to get basic facilities and stuff. You can also get like basic materials the government will like pay for. Like, you know, I took this art class in high school, and you basically got like a pack of pencils and a bunch of paper and stuff just for that class.
That's what
I feel like, you know, necessary facilities are pretty much taken care of.
Oh, yes.
Yes. How has war affected this curriculum?
It's hard to say really, because before I was born, the last war this country was involved in really, I'm thinking of the Second World War, and what came out of that was a kind of a bit of a revolution in British education, but we didn't really have a national curriculum until the 1990s, which was a long time after the Second World War. So I don't think that the Second World War had a massive direct impact on present day education. Okay.
Right. And for the next question is, how has war affected the curriculums?
In the UK, not that much. I know personally at school, politics, they didn't like it being mentioned that much. So apart from stuff that's happened a long time ago, aren't necessarily brought up that much in school. So I don't think it's affected the curriculum too much currently.
Yeah, good.
How has war affected the curriculums?
War has affected the curriculum by, I feel like war is taught a lot. Like, here's the Revolutionary War, here's this war, and so on. So I feel like it's really affected history, but it really hasn't touched any other curriculum. And sometimes it'll, come up in like language arts or English. Where somebody's talking about like, here's this book written, like Animal Farm is really popular in the U.S. for like a language arts book because it talks about the Cold War and stuff like that. It's kind of an analogy for communism and Russia at the time. So I feel like that's analyzed a lot, but I don't feel like it comes up in math and other things.
So for your country, do you have any can you talk about more about this?
Okay. So I feel like in history, a lot of the focus, I feel like a lot of the really interesting stuff that goes on in history is like the wars and things. So like in history class, you would learn about like American history is the one I'm going to focus on because that's what I remember. But you would learn about like the Revolutionary War and stuff. But that wasn't the only thing that was taught. It was kind of like something that happened as a footnote. You would also talk about like the Reconstruction and all the economics that were going on around at the time and the social changes because of slavery and stuff. War was talked about, but it wasn't like the main focus of the curriculum.
In all your education, do you think the word equality was carried out?
Do I think that the education system is equal?
Yes.
No, absolutely not. I think schools in poorer areas of the country suffer again because of education spending cuts by the government, but also we have a private education system where parents who are rich enough can send their kids to fee-paying schools, which tend to supply all the most important jobs in the country. Most politicians, most doctors, lawyers, and so on are mostly privately educated in this country. So no, it's not an equal system.
In all your education, do you think the word equality was carried out?
Equality probably tried. I mean, my school was a girls' school, so they had a big thing on feminism, that kind of idea, and my school was very mixed in terms of different people from different places, so they did try to include it as much as possible, but I don't know about other schools.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, because you right now is studying in United Kingdoms, and but in your past life, like you study the America's education systems. Do you think that these two countries, do you think that the word equality is carried out to your feeling?
I feel like U.S. education does focus a lot on equality because there's a lot of focus, especially in language arts and other things, about like including minorities and history not generally talked about. Like you talk about black people who changed history and like the governors there. There was this guy we talked about in once again like the Revolutionary War thing in history, who was like the first black governor of a southern state, and how he did some pretty awesome stuff, which I guess probably wouldn't have been talked about like 20 years ago, and I feel like there is a push to like talk about, the history of, people's not usually represented.
Do you think the government should fully support students from the kindergarten all the way to university?
I absolutely do, yeah. That's the system I grew up in. My education was completely paid for by tax revenues collected by the government, and then so I didn't pay any university fees, whereas now students have to pay university fees. So I think that's a backward step, and yes, I think education should be supported, funded by the government completely.
Sure.
Fifth question is, do you think the government should fully support students from kindergarten all the way to university?
I feel like, because obviously in the UK we get money, I mean you've got to pay it back, but I feel like it's impossible to fully support students because the universities need quite a lot of money, and also the government doesn't have that much money, so I feel like they do quite a lot, and it'd be quite hard for them to do more. But again, there is some students that do struggle that could probably do with more help, but it's quite hard to sort out.
So you think the government should like support from kindergarten to the high school?
Yeah. So for us it's like sixth form, so till you turn 18 basically.
That's good.
Okay. Do you think the government should fully support students from kindergarten all the way to university educations?
I like that idea because, I feel like education is important and we should focus on it as a society because, more educated people tend to make better and more informed decisions about things. But I also get that it's an economic issue because the government can't, super provide for everybody. Some countries in Europe do it, and that is pretty amazing, but it is a challenge.
I think I benefited massively, from the idea of state education being funded by the government. I don't think I would have gone to university these days because I come from a quite ordinary working class family who would not have been able to afford to pay for me to go. And I probably wouldn't have wanted to get into the kind of debt that student fees now put students into. So I was very lucky. I grew up when my education was, not only was it free, but I got a grant from the government to spend on my education.
Your education system. So do you think it's suitable for you? You think it's fine or something?
Yeah, it's quite good. I mean, there are a lot of countries that probably have better education systems, but it's okay at doing. I mean, there are a lot of countries that probably have better education systems, but it's okay at doing what it does. I know they do try and change it sometimes, but I feel like there's quite a few routes if you don't want to go to university that you can do, and they're trying to increase that now, I think. So there's lots of different courses you can go on, they're like apprenticeships and things. So I think that is getting good to try and stop trying to force everyone to go to university because it doesn't suit some people.
Yes. The final question, how do students feel about the education systems? Do you have any comment?
I feel like a lot of the students in the US are unsatisfied with how the American education system functions. A lot of people feel like what they're learning is not really applicable to their lives.
Yes.
Like you might learn a lot about history, learn a lot about certain topics in math and stuff. And a lot of people don't really feel like they're going to use this in everyday life. But I feel like, as someone who's going into engineering, a lot of the maths and physics that I learned in high school are very applicable. I'm also just, kind of happy to learn about other things too. And so I feel satisfied with my education.